Welcome to Wandering into Wellness.
Welcome.
Welcome back. Finn and Lydia as per usual. We're very privileged to be joined today by Shubamrita, one of the primary disciples of Amma, one of the great spiritual leaders of the world, also one of her primary translators, I believe. And he's a disciple of Amma's for over 30 years. And in touring Ireland for a few days?
For a couple of days, yeah.
Okay, so we've been very privileged in the last couple of months to speak to people from some other spiritual, disciplines and backgrounds. I suppose we're so fascinated because for us having somebody here of your your stature when we're walking into the world as spiritual, maybe children, maybe not knowing so much, we always have these questions of like how we see ourselves as a distance between ourselves and yourself. And I always find that there's when it comes to the practice of things, the practice is innately simple. Is that your feeling, or do you feel is your daily practice, does it have to be very disciplined? Do you practice a very different life from those around you as a result?
Well, first of all, we are all the travelers on the same path, so you don't need to think that you are far away and we are somewhere close, because we are all travel pilgrims on the path towards the truth. And talking about practice, I feel in the initial stages, yes, you need to have a proper discipline. You need to go deeper into it. You need to have a fixed routine, which really helps you to kind of enjoy it in a much deeper way.
Okay.
Yes, but there are times like with my practice, sometimes I'm traveling so much and so many engagements.
Yeah.
So it may not be possible for me sometimes to keep a fixed routine, but I think through practice what you reach is a stage where you somehow try to remain connected, whatever you may be doing.
Yes.
I would never say I'm successful every time, but at least there is an effort from me, and also the mind somehow automatically tries to connect to the presence, whatever you may be doing.
So
I feel that yes, practice is important, but then slowly, we need to reach a stage where every action is a meditation.
Yeah.
Every activity that we do is a way of connecting to the divine. So of course it's quite an exalted state, but it's our efforts have to be towards that.
As far as we can.
Yeah.
Lydia and myself were talking about that routine of daily practice and how to insert that as busy Westerners. I think we've lost a certain amount of spiritual connection for that reason, and we excuse ourselves by saying that we are busy or too busy. Like, I think you were kind of wondering are there ways in that we can give people that for yourself, for myself, for our listeners as well, that you feel are easily attainable, that might be a good starting point?
It's true. What you said about busyness is very true for now. I think all age groups. You find even little ones saying, "I'm too busy."
Yeah.
So I always feel, when we grew up, our parents, our teachers always said, don't just sit, do something. And we were asked to be active.
Yeah.
But I think, we have really identified so much to it that at times we have to say the opposite to ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't just do something, sit.
And do you think part of the problem is because we've encouraged kids to constantly be active? I mean,
I wouldn't say that is the basic. It's also basically the way life has developed. The speed of life has increased quite a lot, and that also has kind of taken us in its web. And along with the speed of life, the speed of the mind has also increased quite a lot.
Yeah.
So so when we say I'm very busy, it in fact refers to two things. One is the activity outside, which you are referring to, but in reality there's a lot of busyness inside. So I think that's why it becomes very important in today's times to know that the way that I can also still my mind, because the knowledge of making the mind run faster, making it efficient, is surely needed. Is in today's age we are supposed to multitask. We are supposed to do many things at one time, and we have somehow kind of learned that art very well, how to make the mind run fast. But at the same time, if you don't know how to stop the mind, then you're always in a danger.
There's no breaks.
And I think one of the troubles is if you are on a practice of meditation and you're maybe at the beginning of the journey, or in fact at any stage of the journey, the mind has an amazing habit of running towards thoughts and busyness and filling itself up with stuff in order to avoid the sitting and the being still. And so that becomes this lovely excuse for ourselves. And when you get down and you sit on your mat, or you sit wherever you're sitting, and you allow that chance for yourself to just drop in, just to be still, you realize, oh, this is the thing that I need. This is the thing my body's telling me that I want. But we just have this habit of attaching to our mind, running towards stuff in order to avoid, as that technique.
Well, I would put it this way. I would say that the mind is one of the most amazing salesmen you can ever find. because when you sit for meditation, your mind knows very well that if this person if he goes deeper into it, slowly he is going to be my boss. I'm going to be the servant. And I don't want that to happen. I want to be the boss. I want to dictate terms to him. So then the mind comes up with so many tricks, saying that this is more interesting. Why are you wasting time now? This can be done tomorrow. There's a concert going on nearby. Go there. Or do you know what's happened in the news today? Or what's the latest score in the game that's happening now? So your mind somehow tries to dissuade you from going deeper into the practice. And when you finally fall a trap to it, then it says, yes, I got it, I got him. So the thing is that it is so important that we see the activities of the mind very clearly and say that, yes, I'm seated here to meditate, but my mind is going all over, and it's trying to make me do many things. But, I am not going to just obey the mind. I'm just going to sit, even if it's a havoc inside me, but it's a turmoil inside me. This half an hour that I'm supposed to sit, I am going to sit. So what happens is, slowly, as we don't fall to its pattern, we don't really fall a prey to what the mind wants us to do. After a while, it starts saying, okay, tell me what to do.
It's getting good from it as well. There's a certain amount.
There is a release that you feel, and you feel, you are more in control of the mind. So yes, in the initial stages, there is always a challenge, because your mind somehow wants to take you away from that state of stillness or meditation and do something else. And slowly, but as you sit and you observe your mind more and more, you see the thoughts very clearly. You see them from a distance, and that helps you not to identify with it very close.
And I think it's that key point of when you realize that you are not your mind, that is a separate entity, that there's a chance to make space between those two things. Because I think when you first start, for most of us, we just assume the whole thing is one thing, and that there's no chance for us to have that space between acting and reacting, or observing and observing how am I reacting to this, what's coming up for me, and what are the patterns that are repeating again and again, and then how can I begin to make those changes.
It is very true what you're saying. It's because of the closeness that it comes between us and the thoughts, It's like we become one with it. We identify to it totally. And once this identification becomes so strong, then it's very hard for us to see it in a right way. An example that Amma gives is always when you are too close to a painting. If you keep a painting this close and see it, you only see dots and lines and some colors. But when you stay at a distance and look at the painting, you enjoy the beauty of it. So it's the same with our mind. When you're too close, you don't see anything properly. You are in a haze. But when you step back and see things, you see things more clearly. It's this with thoughts, with life as well. So that's why to be a witness to the thinking process is in fact a very important step, because that really helps you to see things clearly, and then you say, oh, I haven't invited you, so you're coming, but I don't label you, I don't give you any attention, I don't try to fight with you either. I'm just a witness to what is happening. So once you withdraw the attention from a thought, that thought automatically starts losing strength. That's the beauty of it. You're
not feeding it.
Yeah, because it's your attention that feeds the thought.
Yeah.
So when you withdraw it, the thought automatically becomes a bit helpless.
Yeah.
And then, after a while, it cannot trouble you anymore, because you are not feeding it anymore. Yeah. So it's like it's like an actor, who's putting a performance on a stage. What really makes the actor so inspired to put a performance? It is the attention of the audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the hall is empty and the actor is on stage acting, people may think, what's wrong with him, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same, in the stage of our mind, there'll be all kinds of thoughts that play different roles. But if we can withdraw the audience, you see that everything subsides.
Yeah. With your own progression, like in terms of meditation, in terms of your attitude, your mindful attitude to life, how early in life were you introduced to practices like meditation? Do you remember the time when you weren't so aware of yourself and your thoughts, and has that progression been, was it a very sudden one, or how did it transition? For
me, my whole spiritual journey started after I met my master, after I met Amma.
Okay.
To be very frank, as a youngster, I had no such spiritual inclination.
Okay.
I didn't even ever think that I would be in the spiritual life.
Yeah.
I was doing other things. I was quite good in academics. I was playing a lot of sport. I was in dance and music and all these things, and I was enjoying it quite a lot. And spirituality was never in my set of priorities.
Okay.
But it was my meeting with Amma that really opened this world to me.
Wow.
And I could see, the beauty of it, the grandeur of it, and the importance of it, for every person.
Wow.
And for me, my first, the start of the journey was the attraction I felt towards her presence.
Okay.
And that slowly, also took me to understanding of spirituality, understanding of spiritual practices. So, my first experiences with meditation was after I met her, and I started visiting her, that I really started to put efforts to meditate.
Okay, and was it by chance, or how did you come to meet Amma? Do you remember what was the introduction, or do you mind me asking? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's they say there's nothing called chance. Or nothing
Fair
called
point.
coincidence. Maybe it was supposed to happen at that juncture of life.
Yeah.
In fact, I met Amma during her first visit to a city called Mumbai in India, which is one of the major, the major cosmopolitan cities.
Is that where you grew up?
I grew up in Mumbai.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, one day my parents came home late. They had gone for a function, and I asked them where they were, and they said they had gone to meet a great saint, a great master from Kerala. That's the southern tip of India.
Yeah.
And they were really so happy, and they said that it was a great experience, and they felt that Amma was so full of love and compassion, and she was giving so much to all the people. And my mother casually asked me if I would be interested in seeing her. But at that time, as I mentioned, it was never in my interest. So I said, of course, you're free to go anywhere, but please don't try.
Don't force your ideas on me.
Yeah, don't try it with me.
That's a child's job.
Yeah,
to resist.
I wouldn't really be interested in going anywhere like this.
Yeah.
But it so happened that in a week's time, I was visiting the house of my uncle, and I was asked by my uncle to come to help him set up the place and to welcome Amma. And I tried my best to evade it, giving reasons that exams were coming. I had a game that day and I had to be there and all this. But he was so adamant that I have to be there. So I went there to help him, and after everything was over, he said, "Oh, you just have to wait a little. You have to welcome Amma to the house," because he was going to drive Amma. So in the Indian tradition, normally it's the male member who's also should be there, and his son was out of town. So he said, "I have to do the thing." And I thought, oh my God, this is, he asked me to come to help, and this is getting too far. So anyhow, I didn't want to be disrespectful. So I stayed back, and Amma came, and that first experience of meeting her for me was indeed very, very powerful. And I spent a few minutes with her. She asked me a few questions, but somehow for me, though these were very simple general questions about my life, about about what I was doing, and why didn't I come earlier to see her, and things like that. But somehow after that meeting, there was a big change that happened to me. And the feeling was as if she knew me from before and I knew her from before.
Wow.
And there was some kind of a connection that had got somehow disconnected, that was getting connected again.
Wow.
That was kind of the feeling inside me, but I was not showing it outside, but inside me it was like my whole world was turning upside down.
Wow, very sudden.
I of course I answered some of her questions in the way I could, and then she left in half an hour time. And for me, somehow I could feel that there is something that is changing within. And I drove back home with my mom, and the whole night, the things that she spoke to me, the questions she asked, that kept going in my mind. And it was a very, very different thing. And I've always been very analytical. I don't take things, I really have to be convinced to accept something. Yeah. So I was thinking, why is this happening? Why am I thinking of her all the time? Why can't I do something else? But somehow those moments were so precious, and it kept kind of coming to my mind all the time, and gave me a deeper feeling that I need to meet her again.
Interesting.
And that led me to the second day visit. Okay. And it was one of the last days that Amma was in Mumbai. Okay. And then she left Mumbai, and for me, slowly with every day passing, I could see that there was a great transformation happening in me. Things that were so important for me, that were my priorities in life, didn't seem that important anymore. I started thinking more about the purpose of my life. Okay. I started thinking of how can I really contribute to society, things that I never thought of before. All these questions became very pertinent to me. And somehow it drew me back, because I'm from the same state that Amma is. Okay. So I had a chance to, I was invited for a wedding, so I used that chance to go and visit Amma. Oh, cool. And it was that visit to her place, to a small center that we had those days. Now, of course, it's become the headquarters of our organization. Yeah. It was a small center those days, but it was that stay which made me convinced, that 1 week stay there, which made me convinced that this is what I want to do in life. Amazing. So it was not that, I had it right from my childhood. It was something that I feel totally came after meeting her.
And a very sudden shift.
Yeah, it was. But maybe, there was something that were already there. Answered, and that kind of, Amma, just when the moment she came, that kind of came up.
It's a very, when I remember the first time that I went to go and get a hug from Amma and listen to Amma and take part in the kirtan, the thing that struck me was that we were in this big place in Ireland, in this big centre. There were many, many people there, but when you walked in, everyone took their shoes off and left their bags by the front door, and there was no sense of someone might steal my bag or someone might steal my shoes. There was just this feeling, once you entered the building, of complete trust. And everyone seemed to be responding to that feeling, and the children were running around and everyone was kind of looking after the children, and if you didn't have the money, someone would say, it's fine, you just have the food anyway. And then she came and we queued, and I didn't know how would it be to have a hug, or how could that be. I mean, hugs are lovely, but I didn't know how would that feel. And afterwards it was like, I can't really explain, but I left the place and I walked out into the world, and it felt like there was connection. It just felt like connection, and I felt safe. Walking down the street, I felt like nothing's going to happen. It was just a bizarre feeling, but it felt like everything was right. Everything was safe. Everything was okay. Just pure connection and trust and love. And every subsequent time that I went back to see Amma, that just was reiterated in me. And it felt so strange that in the time between the times that I had met her, it would slowly dissipate, and then I would say, oh, do I want to see her again? No, maybe not, and I'll just go this time, and then the same thing would happen. So I imagine for you it was just a much more profound moment of that.
I think as you mentioned your experience, I think it happens to such a huge number of people in Amma's presence, because those moments that you spend there, somehow you are transported to a very different realm, which in fact is not something which you may feel as, oh, this is not from this world. In fact, that's your real world.
Yes.
That's what we are. In fact, in essence, we are that love, we are that peace, we are that that tranquility. So for some minutes, somehow Amma gives us a glimpse of what we are in reality. And you feel so expansive. You feel so open, and it is an indicator that yes, you feel it very, very deeply in Amma's presence, but also Amma always says that in fact this is something that you can feel all the time. If you really have that tuning to that presence, you can feel it all the time, irrespective of the place where you are. And she wants each and everyone to kind of attain that. Nice. So with Amma's hugs, yes, it's not, normally people think, oh, it's like any free hug moment, but
no.
The hugs are, yes, I'm not belittling anybody, but Amma's hug comes from a very deeper space. It is that it is that oneness that Amma kind of shows us, that that hug, it's like you merge into something so infinite. And it's a very different experience. And Amma says through every hug that she gives, she is investing in people, investing her energy in each and every person. And she says she's also trying to awaken the qualities of motherhood in each and every person, because that is something that man and woman both need,
For a sense of nurturing, or
as nurturing, as love, as compassion, as patience. So there is a lot that Amma invests in each person that comes to her. Of course, the way it grows depends on how receptive you are and how you use that investment in the right way.
Okay. And I think when I was listening to your talks that I could find online, oftentimes you were mentioning how important it is to find your life's purpose and to find that connection back to source. And there's a little bit in the yoga teachings that I would have read about source, and we talk about this, but I was wondering, for our listeners who might not have heard of those terms, could you explain a little bit more about what that might mean and how that might look in reality?
Well, basically, we somehow have been conditioned to feel that we are very limited in many ways. Limited in strength, limited in love, limited in power. And when we say me or I, our whole focus is on this name, this form, the body, mind and the intellect, and we don't really see ourselves anything more than that. But our true nature is much bigger than what we feel we are. So we somehow have to first tap into this deeper source within us, understand that the true me is not just these external things that I feel I am. I mean, when I say external, anything that other than the self that we feel we are. But I am much, much more bigger than that. And that, when I say return to the source, it is, returning to that essence of who we are. Because in reality, every aspect of creation is nothing but that consciousness, is nothing but that truth. But we somehow have kind of put ourselves in a small bracket, and we have cut ourselves from the infinite. It's like a wave thinking that it's different from the ocean. A wave is in the ocean, but it thinks it's different. But in reality, it is a part of it. The moment it realizes its nature, it's such a release. It's such a freedom. So it's basically not being the small person, but kind of understanding yourself as the infinite being. So that is in fact the reality of each and every person. So when we are focused on these limited limited features that we feel we are, the body, mind, and the intellect, that's when all the problems really arise. That's when we struggle with things. That's when we really fall into all the, because there is the I, there is the you, there is so much of duality. That's when we fall into the web of negativity, and I am bigger than you, I am greater than you, I don't like this person, I like this person. So all these things really come from that. Just to go from there and try to go deeper and understand who I am, and connecting to that source. So it is something that really transforms your life completely when you have this understanding that I am not just this body, mind, and the intellect. I am much more bigger than this. I was recently, just a few months back, one day I was serving food in our center, and there was a child who came to take the plate, and Amma looked at the child and said, is this food too much for you? Will you finish eating everything? And she looked at Amma and said, Amma, don't worry, I am much bigger to the inside.
Good one.
So Amma looked at me and said, see, this child conveyed the truth in such a beautiful way. We are all so big to the inside, but we don't realize it. We just think we are that small, that small being.
Great analogy.
But but when you really understand that, no, my true nature is the Atman. Yes, I use my body to realize it. I use my mind for contemplation. I use my intellect, for the right kind of discrimination. But I'm not just this. I'm much beyond it. So connecting to the source is connecting to that power within.
And so our body that we have and the body that we relate to now, that's like the vehicle in order to get
of course
to that.
Yes, it is a vehicle, because we need the body. The body has to be kept healthy. We have to, this is a very, it's such a great instrument that God has given us to realize that essence. So we have to keep it healthy, we have to protect it, we have to nurture it. But it should not be just to pamper it. It should also be to use it for a higher purpose.
So when you say pamper it, you made that child had a great analogy with food. Like, for me, food is a huge part of my life, and I see external to me as well how, in some maybe very basic way, food seems to help build a sense of community, and yet it's kind of a sensory pleasure. Is that a disagreement? Because in some ways it's kind of like, mouth pleasure of the senses, maybe something to be forgotten or to be grown beyond. But then I see it in, I'm thinking like Jamie Oliver's food culture, where he's got people sitting around and eating, and suddenly they're beginning to think of, people around them and sharing and these sorts of things. So how do you feel about that?
Well, if food can lead to greater social activity and help to people, surely, there's nothing wrong in it. But, talking about food and, the liking towards it, yes, we all have our likes and dislikes. We all have our tastes. You may like certain kinds of food. I may prefer something else.
That's my next question.
Yeah. So, it really differs from person to person, with the thing. The food is a very important aspect because, food in the Indian scriptures is not seen as different from the truth.
Okay.
It is seen as Brahman, because without the food, the body cannot sustain itself, and without the body, you cannot realize who you are. But the problem comes when you kind of are stuck with it without kind of thinking about a higher purpose to what you are consuming.
So you elevate the food above the
you kind of you're just caught up with the food and the taste element rather than thinking that what is this food really helping me to achieve. Yes, when my body becomes strong, my body becomes healthy, then that helps me to go much more deeper into myself, to do my practices, to help others. So it becomes a way for you to know the truth. So this body has to be used that way. And that whenever it becomes an obsession, then that is the real danger, because you are then you are away from the real goal of why you should be taking care of the body. And you are just stuck on the food element. So any kind of as you mentioned about eating this food and that food, yes, food always gives you the pleasure. It always gives you the satisfaction. Amma always says that's one thing where people would say, I had enough. I don't need any more. I've had enough. With any other desire, sometimes with money or position, should be give me more. But with food, you would say, no, thank you, thank you. My stomach is full. I can't take anymore. But at the same time, we also have to understand that with any kind of desire, just you don't get over it just by consuming more and more. Even with food, with food, that's the thing. Okay, just to give an example, you have an ice cream, that you like very much. Yes, you enjoy the first cup. You enjoy the second cup. The third cup, you somehow the enjoyment is a little less.
It's a bit sickly.
The fourth cup, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to finish it? Fifth cup, you don't want to see it. It's like, no, it's done.
So
the thing is that if that object alone would give you happiness, that would just keep going. But you see that after a while, it doesn't make you happy anymore, because you don't even want to see it. The first cup that made you so happy, the fifth cup really somehow makes you feel so averse to it. So the thing is, if the happiness is in the food, then it should have kept you happy, but it doesn't. So with any kind of sensory pleasure, that's the thing. We think I experience it a little more and I will be complete. See, it all comes from the basic feeling of incompleteness within. So you think I get a little more and I'm going to be complete. But that never ends. That never really takes you there.
It's not a satisfying
And
route.
when you and that kind of comes back to when a lot of your talks are about the joy of living and how can you find joy in daily life. And that comes back to the same thing, I imagine, isn't it? It's about connection. It's about realizing that you can be complete. You're complete as you are. And it's not until you get the next thing that you'll be happy, or if I have that house that I'll be happy, or when I'm completely well, I'll be happy. It's how can I find happiness in this moment that I'm living right now. Do you have tips for people listening? What's the first step towards that?
Well, when you talk about joyful living, I think some important elements that are, very, very vital in this journey towards experiencing joy in life. I would say one is, to understand your self-worth and to love yourself. It's not just loving the small identity that you are. Of course, you need to respect that as well, but it is loving who you are in essence. And once you have that love, once you have that true self-love within, then you're not dependent on anything external for making you happy. At present we are so dictated by, our happiness is so dictated by others' words and actions. Isn't it? So when you say something, I start flying, I'm so happy. You say something opposite, I am all depressed. So what does that mean? It means that, I'm a slave in one way, isn't it? And you have my remote control. You know what, what button to press to make me happy and what button to press to make me all sad. Yeah. So why do we need to give the remote control of our happiness to a situation or to a person? Because it's not, of course that person may be a very nice person, or, the situation may be okay, but everything in this creation is changing. So, if you are dependent on anything external for your happiness, after a while, that happiness is not going to remain the same. And we all would want to be happy 24/7, right? You never hear somebody saying, oh, I would love to be happy at 8:15 in the morning and at 10:30 at night. You only hear people saying, oh, I want to be happy all the time. So this is something that is very important. So when you understand your self-worth, you don't depend on anything outside for happiness, because you know that it's there right within you, and you cherish it more and more. The second thing I feel also it's important is to be aware of the thoughts in the mind, to be aware of the inner traffic. And that is extremely important, because these are things that take you away from those moments of joy. Where the wandering of the mind into the past, the future, it really takes you away from the moment when it is so filled with joy and happiness. So to be aware of this traffic, and also, we sometimes allow one small thought or a small worry to kind of destroy the happiness that we experience. So example, you have a beautiful morning, you're enjoying the sunshine, just like today. You're enjoying the beauty of the garden, you had a very nice cup of coffee, you had a very good yoga session, everything is fine. And then you are driving and you reach somewhere and you have a parking issue.
Ruined.
Sometimes that for if you're not careful, that one thing is enough sometimes to take you away from that joy that you felt the whole time. And then this person at the end of the day may say, oh, I had such a bad day. But it was just one thing that took you away. So to be aware of the inner traffic is very important. The third thing what I feel is so important is to have gratitude towards life. Because that really keeps you joyful, because you see every situation differently. You see that there is so much that every situation is teaching me. And it's making me more and more mature. It's making me more and more, grow in the spiritual path. And the fourth factor I feel that can really keep people happy or joyful is by practicing giving in life, giving and sharing, because they are like two sides of a coin. Giving and joy. You cannot separate them, because if I give you a flower, yes, it makes you happy, but before that, when I take that flower in my hand, it's already made me happy.
So the
idea of giving it, the thought of giving it itself has filled me up. So I think these are all important things that we sometimes need to remember in life.
Brilliant. Yeah. I love that you didn't go with the magic 3 either.
I know.
It's so often 3. I love that somebody broke that and gave us 4 points. Good.
Somehow I'm stuck with the 4.
I like
it. And gratitude is so important, isn't it? And focusing on what's already working. So this year when I've been looking at setting intentions for my year ahead, or we call them resolutions, but I like to think of it more as intentions. And one that really resonated with me was focusing on what was already working for me, because it's really easy. For example, at Christmas I had a sinus infection, and it was the first time in my life I had a sinus infection, and it took over everything in my life. I was trying to teach yoga, I couldn't put my head upside down, everything was in my face, every way I felt like I was relating to the world was through this. And I first started feeling really positive, and I went to the health food store and I got all the things that Finn recommended, and I was taking them.
Give him good business.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they work though? Here's the story.
I felt they were serving me. I was feeling positive. I did my yoga breath practices. I had my neti pot. I was doing all the things, and I felt good. And then after 2 weeks, nothing. And then after 3 weeks, nothing. And I started to why is this happening? And I live so healthily, and I'm trying all these things, and what's happening? And I really started to feel frustrated and caught in the narrative that I was telling myself. And then one day I just had this moment of saying, my legs are working, my feet are working, my arms are working, hang on, my heart's working, hang on, so much of the things in my body are working right now, and instead I'm just obsessing about the one area of my body that isn't working. And in that moment, it just changed everything. It just shifted. It was like, oh, okay, no, I see what's happening.
Context.
Here. Yeah, here's how I can get perspective on this.
Yeah.
And it was such a powerful moment, because I'd heard it said in so many times that it's hard until you're in that moment of suffering. It's it's not very easy, but it's easier to be grateful when everything's going great.
Yeah. Let's just go grateful, possibly.
Exactly. But once you're in pain, once you're in suffering, it's a harder challenge.
True. It is a harder challenge, but when you really introspect and analyze it properly, you can see that it is teaching you so many important lessons in life, and then automatically that shift happens. You feel very grateful. I always say this, life is a very unique teacher. It always gives the exams first and the lessons later.
That's great.
So
That's
true.
brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. That's very good. Wow.
So, normally it's the other way. You learn the lessons and then, get the exams. But life always gives you. And, when you learn the lessons, that's when you think, oh my God, this was so important in my life. So, when you really look back into life, there's so much to be grateful for. And once that gratefulness comes in, you are somehow automatically driven into that state of joy, into that state of acceptance. You're not resisting things, you're not fighting with yourself, and you are in a better frame of mind to find solutions to things. So I feel, having gratefulness in life is such an important step.
Cool.
Thank you
very
so
much. Wow.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it a lot from that. Really fantastic.
Really, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and keep up the good work you're doing, helping people to develop healthy bodies and healthy minds, and I hope more and more people get inspired by your podcast and they take up to this life.
Well, with teachers like you, I think we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks. Namaste.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and tune in for more podcasts coming soon.